Do you think Big Meech like told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him.
So Terrence Gangsta Williams, who did time right alongside Big Meech, is stepping up and calling out 50 Cent's whole story. And he's not holding back. Gangsta is shutting down the talk about Meech being a snitch. And on top of that, he's spilling on how Meech had the whole prison under his thumb, running things like a straight-up kingpin.
So, Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get BMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man.
Every inmate showed love and respect, no questions asked. This flips the script completely, because now, folks are side-eyeing everything 50's been saying about Meech being a rat. So what's the real deal? Was Meech really working with the feds? Or is 50 just throwing shade because Meech teamed up with Rick Ross and left 50 looking goofy? And what exactly did Gangsta reveal about how Meech moved behind those walls? Let's get into it. An old interview just popped back up.
Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get BMF, ENT on the left side of their neck, man. It was tattooed, and he made it clear. He said, listen, I'm not giving nobody no connect. I'm not hooking nobody up with nothing. I'm not doing nothing when y'all go home. So, in other words, people try to get with him just for, the games, for me, let it be known, look, I ain't got nothing.
One where New Orleans street legend Terrence Gangsta Williams spoke on what life was like with Big Meech inside. Gangsta laid it all out. Meech wasn't just another inmate, he was the guy. According to Gangsta, Meech had the type of pull where every man inside followed his lead, like he was the mayor of the whole prison block. And the craziest part? Meech didn't even have to flex. That influence came natural. Gangsta even said Meech was so connected, he could get his hands on the keys to any yard he touched, like the whole prison system was his backyard. But hold up, here's where it gets wild.
They was there when it was changed.
Exactly.
And they caught it. Okay, we're gonna catch, we're gonna do this party, we're gonna have the tigers and the lions and, you know what I'm saying, elephants and stuff, all like we never seen that type of stuff. Like you can say what you want to say, you know what I'm saying, about, but that type of stuff you only seen in movies, and you didn't even see that in movies.
Yeah.
Even though Meech had a chance to break out and slide back into that millionaire lifestyle before the feds locked him down, he chose to stay put and do his time like a man. Now, we'll dive deeper into that whole escape story in a minute. But first, let's clear up this snitch talk once and for all. Everybody knows 50's been out here calling Meech a federal informant, and he's been using Meech's former associate, Tammy Cowens, to back up those claims. But when Gangsta got asked straight up about what Tammy said, Gangsta made it clear.
Tammy Cohen is a government informant. So they tell me, he says, you know what that's about? And I said, no. He said, well, you threatened a government informant, and that's a federal offense.
He doesn't believe for 1 second that Meech cooperated with the feds. On top of everything, Gangsta even threw some shade at industry folks like 50 Cent, calling them straight-up hypocrites for deciding who they want to label a snitch, depending on who they like or who they beefing with.
But I'm in here with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens, known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential source 1. So what Big Meech did was called a third-party cooperation.
Now, if you really want to understand how all this snitch talk even got started, you gotta go all the way back to the rise and collapse of BMF, the legendary empire that had the whole country talking. That empire is exactly what put Big Meech in that courtroom, where he got slapped with a 30-year sentence. But here's the twist. Meech could have skipped all that time. There was a real moment where Meech had the chance to dip out the country and disappear like a ghost, leaving all those charges behind. But instead of running off, Meech stood tall and faced everything head on. That move earned him serious respect in the streets, but at the same time, it planted the seeds for the mess we're seeing today, including all the snitching stories 50 keeps running with. Let's take it back to the start, though. The Black Mafia family wasn't just some random crew. This was a full-blown criminal empire launched back in 1985 in southwest Detroit. It was the brainchild of 2 brothers, Demetrius, Big Meech, Flannery, and Terry, Southwest T, Flannery. And these two? They didn't just have ambition, they had something even more dangerous, a direct line to top-shelf Mexican cocaine. With that pipeline, BMF leveled up fast and turned into one of the biggest players in the whole game. They weren't moving weight like everybody else either. They ran their whole operation through a family-owned car service, making it look like nothing but legit business. By the early 2000s, BMF had everything on lock. The streets, the clubs, even the music scene. They built a flashy entertainment empire right on top of their drug empire, using it as a front to launder money and flex at the same time. At their peak, BMF had over 500 members calling shots and making moves coast to coast. First time Meech got hit was back in the 80s. Took a bullet right in the neck, standing outside some Chinese spot like it was nothing. Then in 2004, it happened again, this time outside a club in Atlanta. That second shooting, It popped off after a run-in with Anthony Wolf Jones. Yeah, the same Wolf who used to be Diddy's bodyguard. Meech walked away with just a few scrapes, but Wolf and another man, both of them got laid out, gone for good. But BMF wasn't just about bricks and beef. It was about lifestyle. We're talking big living. They had 13 mansions spread across the country like Monopoly pieces, fleets of luxury whips that looked like a car show, and closets packed with designer drip from every top brand you could name. And when it came to jewelry, Meech had Jacob the jeweler on speed dial, making sure he stayed the iciest man in the room, everywhere he stepped. Now, Meech always said BMF stood on brotherhood, like a family-first type of deal. But once they hit the top, all that family talk started cracking. That brotherly love between Meech and Southwest T, it turned into a whole power struggle. People inside BMF still talk about how they'd be out partying one minute and the next. Meech and T would be in each other's faces, arguing over petty stuff in front of everybody. Neither one of them wanted to play second to the other. And Meech even started accusing T of skimming off the top, stealing straight from the BMF pot. By the time BMF was at its peak, the brothers couldn't even run the empire together anymore. They split the whole operation down the middle. Southwest T packed up and moved to LA to stay locked in with their Mexican supply line, while Meech planted his flag in Atlanta, turning the city into his personal playground. The streets stayed hot. And the clubs? Meech made sure they stayed even hotter. But here's the thing. Once the family split, the whole crew started picking sides. BMF went from one unstoppable unit to a crew full of factions, and that crack in the foundation set up the fall that was coming. In 2000, Meech tried to switch gears. He jumped into the music game and launched BMF Entertainment, hoping to turn his street fame into industry power. And with his flashy lifestyle, big personality, and that I run the room energy, Meech fit into hip-hop like he was born for it. BMF wasn't just running the streets, they were running the culture. At their peak, BMF was the hottest movement in hip-hop, hands down. Every major player in the game wanted a piece of that shine. We're talking Diddy, Jay-Z, T.I., Jeezy, even 50 Cent himself. All of them popped bottles and partied with Meech like they were family. And Meech's flexes, Legendary doesn't even cover it. To this day, people still tell stories about how Meech and his crew would roll 100 deep into the club like it was a parade, shutting down every VIP section they touched. One time, just to make a statement, Meech pulled up and parked both of his Maybachs right next to Jay-Z's. Like, yeah, I'm here and I'm on your level. But if you want to talk legendary BMF stories, you have to mention Meech's jungle-themed birthday bash at Magic City, a party so wild, it's still talked about like some urban myth. Meech took flexing to insane heights that night by bringing 2 live white tigers straight into the club. Who else could even pull off something like that? Now, splitting the empire between Meech and Southwest T definitely helped BMF spread out, but that same move started cracking their foundation. T couldn't stand how flashy Meech was getting. The private jets, the non-stop cameras, the wild parties. It made him nervous. And instead of keeping it between them, T started complaining about Meech's antics to their family and close friends. What T didn't know? The feds had every single word on tape the whole time. While T was stressing, Meech just kept living like royalty, throwing million-dollar parties like it was pocket change and inviting the whole city to pull up. But Meech had no clue that some of those party guests were actually undercover agents. These weren't regular cops either. This was a whole federal task force, blending into the crowd, tracking every move Meech made and waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in. After 15 years, yes, 15 years of non-stop investigation, the feds were ready to make their play. They came armed with over 900 pages of wiretaps, stacks of statements from informants, boxes of financial records, and surveillance logs that tracked Meech from the club to the crib and everywhere in between. When they finally made their move, they came down like a hurricane, and the empire Meech built came crashing down with it. The feds had everything they needed: wiretaps, paper trails, snitches, all of it. So in 2005, they made their move, and it was game over. Big Meech and Southwest T both got hit with drug trafficking and racketeering charges in a massive coordinated takedown that shook the streets and the rap game. T got scooped up in St. Louis, while Meech got caught slipping in Frisco, Texas. And they weren't the only ones. 150 BMF affiliates got rounded up right along with them, officially closing the curtain on one of the most legendary street dynasties hip-hop had ever seen. But here's the wild part. BMF knew the storm was coming. Southwest T got snatched first, but Meech? Meech actually had a real shot at disappearing for good. He could have dipped to Mexico, left the country, and started fresh. But Meech being Meech, he didn't run. Instead, he made a quick stop in Miami, then ended up in Frisco, where the feds finally caught up to him. And when the feds came knocking, they didn't just want Meech and T. They wanted everybody. They went after the whole Flannery family, grabbing their dad, their sister, and even their girlfriends. Why? Because the feds found out those family names were all over the titles to homes and businesses BMF used to clean their money. To the feds, that made them part of the conspiracy, guilty by association. This was when the pressure got real. The DEA dangled a deal in front of the brothers. If Meech and T stepped up and took full responsibility for everything, they'd cut the family loose and let them walk. No charges, no trials, just freedom. And Meech and T? They took that deal without hesitation, stood tall for their family, and owned every piece of the operation. That's how the Black Mafia family got hit with the Continuing Criminal Enterprise Statute, one of the heaviest charges you can catch in the game. Both brothers pled guilty, and both got hit with 30-year federal sentences. But here's the twist. In 2020, Southwest T got an early release thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. The judge sent him home to finish the rest of his time on house arrest, while Meech, he's still sitting down waiting on his turn to walk free. Meanwhile, Big Meech wasn't so lucky. When COVID hit, he tried to get that same compassionate release his brother got, but the judge wasn't hearing it. Even though Meech's health wasn't in the best shape, they denied him and left him stuck behind bars. Finally, after 20 long years, Meech walked out of prison in October 2024. But it wasn't total freedom. They sent him straight to a halfway house to finish out the rest of his time under strict supervision. But here's the thing. While the Flannery brothers were locked up, BMF didn't just fade away. They turned into straight-up cultural legends. Their names stayed alive through the streets, the music, the fashion, and endless interviews where rappers and hustlers paid homage to the Black Mafia family's legacy. Then, just 5 years after the brothers got snatched, Big Meech's story officially became pop culture gold. It kicked off in 2010 when journalist Mara Shalhoub dropped her book, BMF: The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family. That book had everybody talking, pulling back the curtain on the empire Meech built. That same year, Rick Ross dropped his smash hit BMF, Blowin' Money Fast, basically turning Meech's name into a rap anthem and glorifying the flashy, untouchable lifestyle he was known for. From there, the legend only got bigger. Fast forward to 2020, and off the strength of BMF's cultural weight, 50 Cent teamed up with Stars to drop the BMF series, a whole TV show dedicated to the rise of the Black Mafia family. And to make it even crazier, Meech's own son, Lil Meech, made his acting debut playing his father. That show blew up instantly. So in 2022, 50 followed it up with an 8-hour docuseries, the BMF documentary, Blowing Money Fast, giving fans an even deeper look into the empire. Then, in 2023, 50 wasn't done. He announced the whole BMF cinematic universe was expanding, with 3 new spin-off shows and a 3rd season already cooking. BMF's story was bigger than ever, until one photo changed everything. Shortly after Meech came home in 2024, he linked up with Rick Ross. And when that picture hit the internet, all hell broke loose. The flick went viral, and it instantly reignited the old beef between 50 and Meech. 50 didn't waste a second. He jumped online accusing Meech of snitching, and even went so far as to say the BMF show was done for good. But 50 wasn't done running his mouth. He even claimed he's sitting on real paperwork proving Meech worked with the feds. Only problem? Some fans were quick to point out that those same documents been floating around for years, and nowhere in those papers does it actually say Meech is a federal informant. Now this is where everything gets messy. Even if Tammy Cowens really did cut some kind of deal with the feds that helped knock down Meech's sentence, that still doesn't automatically mean Meech was part of it. If this was legit cooperation, Meech would have had to sign off on it, giving Tammy the green light to pass info to the feds to help get him a lighter bid. But if Meech never knew about it, or wasn't involved in what Tammy was doing behind the scenes, then this whole thing is more like a sneaky legal loophole, not full-blown snitching. Now, 50 Cent, he's out here acting like it's facts that Meech knew exactly what Tammy was up to, claiming Meech was feeding her the info she gave to the feds. But then you got people like Terrence Gangsta Williams, who actually know Meech, saying they don't believe for 1 second that Meech ever worked with the law. So now it's your turn to sound off. What do you think? Why is 50 so pressed about pushing this whole Meech is a snitch angle? And if this paperwork has been floating around for years, why didn't 50 have a problem cashing in on Meech's story when he made the BMF series?